call the meeting to order of the Legislative Audit Commission, and for the purpose of the audio record, it's today is March 6, 2017, about 9:32 a.m. So our purpose here today is for the release of the Office of the Legislative Auditor Standardized Student Testing Evaluation. And so we have Judy Randall here today from the Legislative Auditor's Office and David Kirchner to present the report. And then for folks to know, we have the Assistant Commissioner from the Minnesota Department of Education to testify as well. So with that, Ms. Randall, would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. For the record, my name is Judy Randall. I'm the Deputy Legislative Auditor for O.L.A.'s Program Evaluation Division, and we are very pleased to be here today to release our evaluation on standardized student testing. Before we move into that, though, I just wanted to touch on a couple items of business for the Audit Commission. In your packets, we have an updated membership list that has the subcommittee assignments in there, so thank you, Madam Chair, for providing that to us. So that's in there for your information. The other thing I wanted to remind you of is the topic selection schedule. Topic suggestions are due this Friday to O.L.A. In your packet, you should have extra copies of this yellow form that you can share with other members. I have extra ones if you need more. And I would just remind you that members can simply write on this form, fold it, and mail it in, or they can email suggestions to you all, and you can forward them to us, or people can email myself or Mr. Nobles directly. So we're hoping to have the evaluation subcommittee get together next week to suggest the semifinalists. So just a reminder on that timeline. And then finally, I wanted to remind you of the final two evaluations that will be coming out after today. We have an evaluation on Clean Water Fund outcomes, and we are hoping to release that to the legislature on March 20th, and I'll be in discussions with you, Madam Chair, and the committees of jurisdiction to schedule that release. And then our last evaluation will be on the Minnesota State High School League, and we anticipate that coming out at the very tail end of March, maybe bleeding into early April. So with that, I think I'll move to the matter at hand. As you noted, we are here today to release an evaluation report on standardized student testing. And I know this is a topic that the legislature thinks about a lot, talks about a lot. It's also something that schools think a lot about, especially because they spend a lot of time administering the state standardized tests. You will hear today that more than half of Minnesota schools took more than 3 weeks to administer the state standardized tests, the MCAs, and the Access for English Language Learners. In fact, more than 300 schools took 5 weeks or more to administer the MCAs to all their students. That's a significant share of the school year. So why does it take so long to administer the MCAs? Well, as is usually the answer, there's a number of reasons. But one of them is because the schools must now administer these tests on computers. And many schools have limited technological resources. So they have to rotate their students through the computer lab to take the tests. And of course, while the students are using those computer labs to take those tests, that means the computer labs aren't available to other students to do other activities, other learning activities on the computer. So we know schools and students spend a lot of time taking or administering these tests. Is it worth it? Are the tests useful? And again, the answer to that question is, it depends. The tests are primarily useful for the state to evaluate whether, on average, school students are meeting the state standards. And that's important. However, there have been a number of legislative efforts to do more with those tests. For example, to make the MCA tests adaptive, to measure progress that students make, or to mirror locally adapted tests that schools have found useful. And we would say generally those legislative efforts to do more with the tests have been unsuccessful. In the end, we think the state may be trying to do too much with this one testing mechanism. So to learn more about our findings and our recommendations, I want to turn to Mr. Kirchner, who was the manager of our evaluation. Again, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to release our report today.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. Mr. Kirchner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, my name is David Kirchner. I was the manager for this evaluation. And before I get started, I would like to thank my colleagues on this evaluation, Caitlin Badger and Katie Reed, for their very hard work on this evaluation. The presentation I make today represents their hard work as well, and I could not have done it without them. Let me start, if I could, with a brief overview of our findings. First, as Ms. Randall noted, administering the standardized tests required by the state creates substantial logistical challenges for schools, and those challenges strain resources and affect student instruction. Second, the usefulness of test scores varies depending on who is using them. We found that local educators' familiarity with how to analyze and interpret test scores varied quite a lot from one place to another. Third, we point to several legislative mandates that we feel are too prescriptive and should be changed or at least reconsidered. Now, let me start off by providing a little bit of background so we can all get on the same page. At the end of 2015, Congress passed a new education law, finally retiring the controversial No Child Left Behind law. The new law, the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA for short, kept the same testing requirements in place that were there before. We have the same number of tests required by the feds that we have. However, the new law eliminated the strict penalties that were in place for schools with low test scores under No Child Left Behind. And at the moment, we're in a bit of a transition period. MDE is planning to submit its state plan for implementing ESSA in September, but we're also waiting to see how the new presidential administration will interpret and enforce the law's provisions. So we're in a little bit of a transition period there at the federal level. This is important because federal law drives Minnesota's testing requirements. State laws mandate little standardized testing beyond that specifically required by federal law. There's a couple of extra things. There's a locally chosen literacy test in the early elementary grades that is that local school districts and charter schools can decide what to use for that test, but they do have to administer one in grades kindergarten through second grade. And school districts and charter schools are required to offer 11th and 12th graders an opportunity to take a nationally recognized college entrance exam. But beyond that, the state requirements mirror the federal requirements in terms of what tests are being given. However, state laws do constrain MDE to deliver those tests that are required by federal law in certain specific ways, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. There are two primary tests that Minnesota uses to meet those federal requirements. The first, the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, the MCAs, are probably the most visible. All students must be tested in certain selected grades, grades 3 through 8 for math and reading, and grades 5 and 8 for science, and then 1 in each one of those subjects during the high school years. And those tests, as Ms. Randall said, are administered by computer, except for a few students who have accommodations to take them some other way because of a disability. In addition to the MCAs, there's another test that Minnesota uses to meet federal requirements, the access tests. And these are the tests that measure English language proficiency. Only English language learners are tested, but the tests are annual in every single grade, K through 12. And there are 4 of these tests: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Again, these are mostly administered by computer, although in the younger elementary grades, some of the tests are given on pencil and paper. But they're mostly administered by computer. And I want to note that there are, for some schools, this is actually a pretty large proportion of the tests they give. And in fact, in some districts and charter schools, they give more access tests than they give MCA tests, because it's in all grades, even though it's only for English learners. And so that's an important thing to talk about as we talk about the challenges that schools face to administer these tests. In addition to these 2 tests, there are some alternate tests. Those are provided for students with severe cognitive disabilities. There's an alternate for the MCAs, which is called the MTAS, the Minnesota Test of Academic Skills, and the alternate access for ELLs. These tests are administered one-on-one by a teacher or another trained educator. Nearly all school districts and charter schools that we contacted also used locally adopted tests of one kind or another. As I noted above, schools are required to choose a locally adopted test for that literacy test requirement in grades kindergarten through second grade. But many districts and charter schools use tests in other grades as well. These include the MAP, the STAR, the FAST, Ames Web. There's several of them out there. And we conducted surveys of teachers and principals statewide, and more of both groups said that these tests were useful than that the state's tests were useful. However, though we sometimes heard a lot of interest in using these tests to replace the MCAs, as far as we can tell at the moment, such tests aren't aligned to the state's academic standards, which is a requirement under federal law. Further, many of the things that principals and teachers and other administrators like about these tests are tied to the convenience and flexibility of these tests, and those things, if those tests were changed in order to meet the requirements of federal law, might end up being less convenient or less flexible than they are now. So that's something to point out as well. To do this testing statewide, MDE uses vendors, outside companies, to design, distribute, and score the tests. And we looked pretty closely at MDE's relationship with these vendors. Generally, we found that MDE has done a solid job in selecting and in overseeing these outside companies. We think the MDE could do just a little bit better job with regard to both of these in terms of measuring the local satisfaction with the services, but on the whole, we thought MDE is doing okay on that. However, we do want to note that with regard to the access vendor, I'm sorry, the MCA vendor is Pearson. The access vendor is a group called WIDA. That is a consortium of 35 states. And so MDE does not have quite the same ability to oversee or tell that contractor what to do, because if it's unhappy with what's going on, it would need to have a bunch of other states also be unhappy in the same way in order to be able to say, well, we want you to change the test in this way. So just that note as we go along. We observed, we obtained and analyzed data on students taking tests, and particularly on how much time students took to take tests. We got data on every student that took tests in the state using a computer. Most individual students do not test for very long periods. We have a chart in the report on page 49 if you want to look at the more granular detail. However, broadly speaking, the median student that's taking 2 MCAs takes around 3 hours to complete all their tests. Those students that take 3 MCAs, that would be math, reading, and science in 5th and 8th grades, for example, about 4.5 hours. But the time, as you'll see on that chart, varies quite a lot based on grade and test. I also want to note that English learners in particular, we found, spend more time testing than other students. And that's important not just for those students to take more time testing, but also bear in mind that those students are, in addition to the MCAs, taking the 4 access tests, the reading, writing, speaking, and listening tests as well. So those students are spending more time than most students taking tests.
Excuse me just a moment. Yes, Senator Benson.
Madam Chair, I was wondering, when you say the students are spending 3.1 hours is their median, how many classroom periods is that interrupting? Because if we have a 50-minute classroom period, I think that's a better indication of kind of the disruption in the day. And if they're taking 2 tests in a day, does it completely disrupt the morning and the afternoon? So was that something that is deeper in the report? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just about to
Mr.
talk about.
Kirchner?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm just about to talk about some of these issues, but one thing I will note is that many students do take parts of the test on multiple different days. So it varies to some extent based upon the choices made at the local level about how they choose to administer the test, whether they try and put a whole bunch together at one time or they do little pieces over several days. What I was just about to pivot to saying, and hopefully this will answer your question, even though the individual students don't take so long to take tests, when you look at it in terms of how much time schools are spending giving tests, that is a different story, and that's a story that we think is rather important. I have a chart here up on the slide, and each one of these bars is in groups of days, how many days the school spent testing, okay? And so these are in groups of 5 days, 1 through 5, 6 through 10, 11 through 15. So you might think of that as weeks, if you like. And so you can see here that there are quite a lot of schools who spend more than 3 weeks getting all of their, and these are just MCA, getting all of their MCA testing done. And there are a substantial number of schools that take more than 25 days or more than 5 weeks if you were to string it all together.
Mr. Kirchner, I have a
yes.
question for that. Do you have the number on how many days it took prior to computers?
That Thank you for the question, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Kirchner?
We do not have that answer, and in part, the fact that the tests are administered by the computer allowed us to be able to pull this data. In other words, we were able to pull for every single student when they were logged in and on what day they were logged in and count all that up. Otherwise, before the use of the computers, we would not have been able to count this other than by like surveying every single district in the state and asking them on what days did you give tests.
Okay, but I would suppose that if I remember anyway from these MCAs, they were able to have a larger number and have a monitored room, and they would have assistants helping them, and that paper isn't all bad sometimes, and I understand some of the other benefits here, preciseness to it, but in regards to the time spent and the consuming of staff resources and the kids in its totality, I think that's an interesting perspective. But go ahead, Mr. Kirchner. I want to keep you going through your report.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think it is clear that computers do provide certain advantages, one certainly being, for example, the ability to get scores back much more quickly than with paper, but there are certain disadvantages as well that we are certainly pointing out in this report. So absolutely, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Senator.
Yes, just a quick question, a point of clarification. The school day administering a test, does that constitute an entire school day, or would a day in which 10% of the school's time count as a day on your chart here?
Mr. Kirchner.
Thank you very much, Senator Frentz. That's a very good clarification. Thank you for asking the question. The way that we counted is that on any day in which the school was giving a test, that we counted that as a day spent testing. So that could have been just one or two students that were that had taken a particularly long time completing, or it could have been, you know, dozens or more students that were taking tests throughout the day. But from our point of view, any time that the school was spending testing was time that not just students but staff were and resources were occupied in giving those tests. So that's the way that we count.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Kirchner.
So as we said, testing takes a long time, and when testing takes a long time, the impacts on staff and on resources take a long time as well. And we found that there were substantial impacts on staff and resources. Teachers, principals, counselors, others end up limiting their regular responsibilities in order to work on administering these standardized tests. And that affects not just the students that are testing, but non-tested students as well. We thought a particular example that I wanted to point out has to do with students in special education and students that are English learners. In many schools, for example, the way in which those types of services are delivered is that teachers pull students out of their regular classrooms and provide them with additional services outside of class. But if those teachers are occupied testing other students, they aren't able to do those sorts of pullouts. And that's something that we heard in more than one place that we visited. Nearly 1 in 5 school districts and charter schools that we surveyed told us that they hire additional staff in order to be able to administer standardized tests or to analyze the results. There are also...
Excuse me, Mr. Kirchner,
Yeah.
Senator, and Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In this analysis of time and with additional staff, did you look at, say, special education components in that where a student through their IEP may need to have the questions read to them? I mean, is that piece in your summary, or is that separated out in your analysis?
Mr. Kirchner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question, Representative Hansen. It's what we have is we have time that students spend testing on a computer. So if the accommodation was such that a staff had to work one-on-one with that student while the student was using a computer, that would show up in our time. If the student was using pencil and paper, for example, then that wouldn't show up. And as I pointed out earlier in the report, there are these alternate tests for students with cognitive disabilities, the MTAS and the alternate access. Those are administered one-on-one by teachers, and that wouldn't be in our data at all because there's no computer time there. So that is an additional challenge scheduling challenge that schools have to manage in order to be able to get each of these students tested in a one-on-one process using a trained educator. And during that one-on-one process, of course, they're not in the classroom working with other students.
So, Mr. Kirchner, I would gather that the concern we have is that teachers are spending time testing and not teaching. And there are students who are spending time testing instead of being taught. And the amount of time that that consumes can also even affect the results of the test. So we get ourselves in a little thing going here. All
Madam
right,
Chair,
Senator Benson.
if I
I
could.
do want to be sure we let them get through in case they
we need
answer
to
questions,
stay on
Senator
time,
Benson.
But also the number of teachers who feel they need to spend time leading up to the test, teaching to the test, and so it disrupts their regular curriculum.
Exactly.
And
You're right, Senator Benson, yes. Mr. Kirchner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will note, Madam Chair, that we do not have evidence in the report to suggest anything about any of these time issues affecting the validity of the tests themselves. So that's not something that we found anything about one way or the other. Actually, that was not a question we examined. So just to note that, Madam Chair. As I was saying, these impacts on resources also take place, as well as the impacts on staffing. As Ms. Randall noted, testing often makes computers unavailable for instruction. And we also noted that testing can affect the computer use elsewhere in a school because of wireless or internet bandwidth issues. We've heard in a number of places that schools have to limit the ability of other classrooms and other instructors to use their computers because they want to protect the bandwidth during the testing period. And also, there are costs involved. Schools and rather charter schools and school districts often have to spend money in order to be able to administer the test because they have to have sufficient computer infrastructure. 83% of school districts and charter schools reported purchasing additional equipment or software to give these tests. And that's, I'm sorry, within the past 3 years. So we have a broad recommendation here to the department, and that is that MDE should do more to systematically measure these types of local impacts that we're talking about. Without that kind of measurement, it's harder to tell, even if we make changes, whether or not those changes are going to have had any effect, because we don't have that before and after measurement that Senator Kiffmeyer was speaking of. We don't have that before with the pencil and paper to the after with computer to be able to say anything one way or the other. So we think that MDE should be trying to do more to measure these types of staffing, of resource impacts. However, I will note that we do think it's important that MDE work with its local stakeholders to figure out those measurements, because the last thing we need is to add measuring tasks that are additional challenges for school districts and charter schools during the testing period. So we think that's an important thing for the department to do. And MDE should certainly use what it learns to make policy decisions and recommendations to the legislature about testing going forward. Let me pivot away to talk about the uses of test scores. A quick overview, perhaps. The most obvious way that test scores are used is that they are publicly reported. They're publicly available and become part of the public conversation about education. Additionally, schools that get certain types of federal funding have to take steps to address low test scores, and they are part of the world's best workforce measures, the law that the legislature passed, the kind of state accountability system the legislature passed a couple of years ago. I will note that those ways in which schools have to address low test scores are going to be changing moving forward as the state implements its new plan to implement the Every Student Succeeds Act. So that's a little bit in flux at the moment. There is specific state literacy aid in law that is given to schools, and that's based directly on test scores for students in grades 3 and 4. At the local level, the uses of tests vary quite a lot. There are some school districts and charter schools that use them very heavily and spend a lot of time analyzing, and it really ties into the decisions they make about curriculum and instruction. There are other places where our census test scores aren't really used very much, and they make use of other information to make those types of decisions. Part of those differences may be because local educators, many of them feel uncomfortable interpreting test scores. As I said, we surveyed principals and teachers throughout the state, and there was a lot of variation. One question we have here on the slide, we asked overall, we asked them to agree or disagree with the statement. Overall, I feel sufficiently prepared to interpret test scores. You can see here for the MCAs, 75% of principals said that overall they felt prepared. So that's 1 in 4 weren't comfortable agreeing with that statement. For teachers, it's less than 60% we're comfortable agreeing with that statement. And for access, it's much lower. And I want to note that those access numbers I have here on the slide, that is limited to only those schools which serve English learners. So that does not include schools where they don't have English learners in the classrooms.
Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It would seem if the educators are uncomfortable interpreting, it'd be awfully hard for the parents as well.
Mr. Kirchner, I'm sure, harder thing to comment, but I would concur. It's very concerning that a teacher would give a test that then 57% say they feel sufficiently prepared to interpret. Representative Erickson, was that ever an experience of you? I know you have the teacher background. I mean, when you gave a test, interpreting it, was that an issue for you that you recall?
Well, Madam Chair and members, I think what we have to keep in mind here is that we have standards. We have state standards, and in the standards are benchmarks. And when a teacher prepares a lesson, whether it's in language arts, reading specifically, or math, they key in on those benchmarks. And then the benchmark is what shows up in the test. And so I think the reason that teachers are still struggling with interpreting data is that the language arts standards were changed not too long ago. The math standards are very robust, and it takes time to understand how to analyze data when you're in an ever-changing situation. So part of it is the changing of the standards, because teachers have to understand the benchmarks of the standards to present a lesson and reinforce it for the students, and then when the tests come back, to be able to key in on the benchmark strength or weakness of the child. So, I think it's two ways here. I think that, the legislature in allowing the revision of standards, which now we've put a hold on, is, partly responsible, and we did update them in 2010 and later. But the other is teachers are not equipped to understand data because this is a different kind of system. It is drilling down into the standards and focusing on the benchmark. And in past days, when teachers gave tests, if it was the Iowa Basic, it was so general that you weren't looking for something that specific as we look for today. And the reason we do is because we have these standards and the tests are based on them. So maybe it's circuitous, I don't know, but I feel bad for teachers that, they haven't been given enough training in how to understand data. But the data is very important, and we know how important data is today. So that's my circuitous answer.
Well, thank you, Representative Erickson. I think that's a very helpful insight to have. Mr. Kirchner, would you just go ahead? I think you just got a little bit more to finish here.
Okay, well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Representative Bernardi. didn't-
Okay, well, thanks, Madam Chair. I was just going to comment too and wondering, are you able to say if teachers are actually using this for student development and learning as opposed it's more administrative to do a snapshot of each class each year? Because I know as a parent, these were not very helpful to me. These tests, it was the NWEA that I was able to measure my child's growth and know where they were at. So do you think that's part of the issue?
Mr. Kirchner, do you want to respond to that?
I don't think so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's it really varied, is I think the answer. There are certainly teachers who know this data quite well, and we talked to some of them, and there are teachers who really feel kind of at sea about it. So it's both. And I think that's reflected in these scores. It's not as if, every teacher didn't feel comfortable interpreting test scores. Some teachers know the test scores quite well. But I do want to note, I think that Representative Erickson is correct, is that one issue in terms of trying to get the teachers up to speed on how to interpret test scores is time. We sent out these surveys around the start of the year, the start of the school year, when teachers are very busy. And I have to say, we're very appreciative of the teachers who respond to our survey. We were startled by the number of teachers who responded to our survey between midnight and 5 in the morning. We have that information because it was a computerized survey. So we're very appreciative to them for taking part in our study.
Thank you, Mr. Kirchner. Just to remind you, members, though, we do have Mr. McHenry, and so some of your questions he might anticipate and respond to some of that here yet. So, Mr. Kirchner, if you want to conclude.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we make a broad recommendation that MDE increase its outreach to school districts regarding score interpretation and abuse. Most of what the department has been doing has been focused on schools with the lowest test scores, but we think that our data suggests that the need is much broader, and we think that MDE should consider doing more. As I noted at the start of my presentation, we have some concerns with some specific areas of state law where we think the legislature has been too prescriptive. I know that I've been up here for a while here, so I'll try and run through these real quick. But there are essentially two different statistical growth scores out there. They're very similar to each other, but they're not quite the same. One of them is specified in state law, and we generally think it's kind of unwise to put a statistical formula in state law for how test scores are to be reported. We think a broader statement there probably makes more sense. There are specific scores for career and college readiness that show whether or not students are on track to be ready for college by the time that they finish high school. And our concern with these scores really has to do with these scores for the younger students. When you're talking about a third grader or a fourth grader, to say that that student is on track or off track for college readiness, the margin of error is very, very wide. And we don't think those scores are really very reliable. The high school level, fine, but we really think that the legislature should not require MDE to report scores at those younger grade levels for students. And then thirdly, there's a requirement in law that MDE use above grade and below grade questions on the MCAs. And the issue there has to do with the fact that that's not very compatible with the federal requirements as they have been in place up to now. So federal requirements have not allowed MDE to use those above grade and below grade questions to put together its proficiency and growth scores for students. So the end result is that MDE has extended the test, has made the test longer to add those questions because it's required in state law, but then it can't use those questions to make the scores. Now, there may be something different about the way in which ESSA is written that might allow that going forward. So our recommendation there is simply that MDE report to the department as it receives more guidance, whether or not those scores are going to turn out to be useful. We generally have some broad concerns about the statutory purposes that are listed in law, just that there's a lot of them. The tests are supposed to be used to measure proficiency and growth. They're supposed to serve as information to evaluate teachers. They're supposed to serve as something of a placement score for Minnesota State institutions. They're supposed to provide teachers with diagnostic information they can use in the classroom. When you have an awful lot of purposes like these, you end up having it's kind of a grab bag. Most tests serve some purposes better than others. It's a little bit like asking the department to buy a car that gets great gas mileage and can tow a boat and carries lots of passengers and it's easy to parallel park and it costs less than $25,000. The end result is that the department ends up saying, okay, we have all these requirements, and the department ends up having more discretion actually because they have to balance all these various things. So some recommendations to the legislature. We suggest the legislature avoid some of these overly prescriptive, specific testing requirements. And instead, we suggest the legislature should set kind of clearer priorities for the department for what it wants these tests to be and what it wants them to do. If the legislature says, first, we want you to make sure that you meet the federal requirements, and then if you can provide diagnostic information for students, and then if you can do something else, then that is a clearer set of priorities for the department, and the legislature can hold the department more accountable. Or the legislature might decide, first, your biggest priority is to reduce the number of logistical difficulties for local districts, and then after that, once you've done that, do something else and do number 3. Again, the legislature can set those priorities, but if you tell the department to do everything, then the end result is the department ends up kind of making the decision about what's most important instead of the legislature. And with that, Madam Chair, I am done with my presentation. I'd be more than happy to take any additional questions that the Commission has.
Thank you, Mr. Kirchner. I think we've done some of our questions along the way, and we appreciate, okay, Senator Limmer. We're going to have Mr. McHenry, if you want to come down and get ready to
I
testify.
just had a brief question. I came in just a little bit late from the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if I missed this or not. I was looking through the pages on the very beginning on the background and of tests. And did you put into your presentation the backdrop of our constitutional mandate as you did your study?
Mr. Kirchner?
Madam Chair, no, I did not. We did not. I did not reference the constitutional mandate, but thank you for
The
bringing
only
it up.
reason I bring it up is
Senator Limmer.
I oftentimes go back to our state constitution just to kind of get the very original thought of why we do what we do in this state. And I think testing has probably gone in the direction from that earlier mandate. And the legislature, or at least when the state was created, as it was talking about education, it states, "It is the duty of the legislature to establish a general and uniform system of public schools." I'm not sure if today we can say that we've done that or not. And so testing becomes a useful tool to measure that uniformity, at least. The question of, are we advancing with current subjects and trends, is another subject, but if we do, then it should be uniform. And I think we as a legislature probably get a little too finely focused sometimes, and we start getting off track of where we should go. So this type of legislative report is useful as long as we keep in mind our original mission, and that's to provide uniformity to our kids. And I think that's the purpose of having tests. And you can measure the effectiveness of perhaps in some cases, the teacher or the school, or perhaps even a school district, of where they're moving forward. Some are quite a bit more advanced than others, and others are lagging behind for a variety of reasons, probably not even as a result of what they do in school. But nevertheless, I just wanted to make sure that we had some little footnote on the discussion that our original mission way back at the beginning is to create general and uniform public education. And if we're straying as a legislature and getting off in the weeds, it's important to know that.
Thank you, Senator Limmer. With that, we'll go ahead and have Mr. McHenry come down. Thank you, Ms. Randall, Mr. Kirchner, and to the Legislative Auditor's Office for good work. We appreciate it very much. I especially appreciate your nice little neat list of recommendations in the back, so I can go to the Cliff Notes and find the actionable items. And members, I'd also call your attention to the very nice list included in here of recent O.L.A. evaluations and different topics. It's kind of a nice summary with each report. Well, Mr. McHenry, welcome to the committee. Glad to see you. And if you go ahead, and you're going to be presenting a response to this report, correct?
Sure thing.
Thank you, Mr. McHenry. Please go ahead. And then, of course, as you know, state your name or whatever officially for the audio record.
Sure thing. Madam Chair, members, Kevin McHenry. I'm Assistant Commissioner at the Department of Education. We just want to say, first off, thank you all for taking the time to have this report done. We want to thank the Office of the Legislative Auditor for their thorough report. We feel it was very thorough and very fair in the recommendations they have provided. And we look forward to working with you all, the legislature, in terms of implementing some of the recommendations they made. The first comment we'd like to make is just around just what our state standardized tests are. Again, we do have, I think some of the complications that arise is that we have tests built to our specific state standards that are used for accountability purposes. The need of assessments has grown beyond that. We talked about some of the local assessments where they might be able to be shorter and quicker, that they provide a different purpose. And I think what we've done over time is try to combine the usefulness of tests, whether they're used for accountability purposes or these quick point-in-time measurements, to really make these tests do more than they were originally intended for, which is measuring our state standards and proficiency towards those state standards. So with that, we will continue to keep an eye on how we administer our state exams and making sure that we are still aligned to our state standards. A couple of things I did want to point out and some of the key recommendations that I did want to highlight that were highlighted in the report. First off, O.L.A. did recommend that MDE should gather information from districts and charters on local costs and impacts of our exams. We feel that this is a really good recommendation. We constantly are trying to find ways to gather input from our districts and from our charters to make sure that we're delivering the best testing experience possible. The one thing that we do want to make sure is that if we are spending time collecting data from districts, we want to be able to share it with the legislature and make sure that there is some actionable items that we can do, rather than having districts and charters provide information just so we have that there, rather than actually utilizing it. So that's something that we look forward to doing. The second recommendation is that we should further increase our outreach and support to school districts and charters in order to help interpret data. And this is something that we can't agree with more. I think Representative Erickson has already touched on what our tests are doing and how they're built to the standards and our benchmarks. We do have more data at our hands. And in our assessment division in the department, we've created a very, very small team just around data analytics to help really to quantify our data or to analyze data and make data more useful for parents, for teachers, and for school districts. One of the issues in understanding data is that we need to make sure districts and charters are trained. I think the O.L.A. did highlight where principals and teachers feel that they are prepared to interpret the data. What we did is we applied for and received a federal grant, and we do have an individual on our analytics team that works just on helping districts, principals, and teachers interpret data. That's a new position, but that is only one person. We do go across the state. We do go to our regional centers. We do provide webinars, but that's something that we are looking at expanding our ability to reach districts, reach parents, reach teachers, and school administrators. One thing of note we did in the governor's budget, we do have, did ask for increased funding around our analytics division, and this kind of highlights the need of why we were asking for an expansion of our analytics individuals so they can actually be out in the districts, have more time to actually work with teachers to really help implement data. And then the third key recommendation that was outlined in the report was just the discussion that you all just had in terms of removing or re-examining certain legal requirements that are really prescribing test formats. This is an area where I think as a department, there are times when the legislature passes bills, we try to provide as best information as possible to you all. And then when we get into the implementation stage with districts, that's when more concerns start to rise. And the more prescriptive the language is of what we have to do or how tests need to be administered, the less flexibility we have to meet those districts' needs. So that's something that we're interested in receiving feedback from districts and working with you all in terms of finding areas where we don't have to be as prescriptive as possible. One other area that was outlined towards the end of the report was just on the test length. This is obviously, as we've increased the uses of tests, we've made them adaptable, we've made them online, but we've also made them on and off grade. And in our policy bill, one of the things we did recommend eliminating the need for on and off grade exam questions. That does lengthen the amount of the exam and the time spent on testing. So that's something that we have placed in our policy bill. So just in closing overall, as a department, we like to review our work. We like to make sure that we're finding ways to continuously improve the work that we're doing. And we feel that this report is a good step in really providing a thorough analysis of statewide testing. We look forward to using this report and working with the legislature to implement as much as we can to streamline our state student assessments, but at the same time really clarify what what's needed, what our tests are really required to do, and then minimizing all the extra requirements that we're trying to have one test reach several different points. So with that, thank you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McHenry. Members, I just want to mention that there are other committees, and they're looking for us to come, so. I will go to you, Senator Benson. But Mr. McHenry, on the list of recommendations, in your response, you picked out 3. What I would really like to do is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are actually 8 of them, the list of recommendations, and it's towards the end, just before the appendix. And I was wondering if we could get a letter from the department that would respond to each one of these, and in particular, the number 4 one, the specific MCA growth formula in law, and instead provide broad guidance to the department. I'd like things to be a little bit more specific in regards to the department and recommendations to the legislature, language included, statutory language where we can, because that expedites taking an action on a very valuable report that we all appreciate, but I'm looking for a little more specific responses to that. If you could do that?
Madam Chair, members, we can provide more response. We, in our response that's included in the back of the report, we went off of the key recommendations
Okay.
To try to utilize your time as best, but we're more than happy to follow up on any specific questions
No,
in there
8
as
of them. Well, all 8 of them, if we could get what you did for 3, if we could do it for them all.
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Yes.
The education committees will be hearing this audit report in both the House and Senate. And that's where we need to drill down.
All right.
You know, not at this level, but at the specific level. So we will be having our report, I believe it's the 14th, is when we're scheduled to hear the audit report in the Innovation Policy Committee. And I'm sure Senator Pratt will follow up.
Thank you. Senator Benson.
And Madam Chair, and perhaps this is best directed to Representative Erickson and Senator Pratt. I'm looking on page 3, the slide 5, actually. We test in grades 3 through 8, but there's referred to in the slides that we only measure, the legislature uses the tool of reading for grades 3 and 4. And so at what point do we reevaluate and say, you know what, let's only measure where it really matters and not test these kids over and over again? And so I'm not going to direct questions to the department, but I'll see Senator Pratt a little later today and maybe ask that question. Because as a mom with kids who've gone through these MCAs, it's disruptive in the school day. And if there's good information coming out of it that helps us with the general and uniform system, then it's worthwhile. But if we're testing for the sake of meeting some arbitrary line the legislature put in place a while ago, I think it's time to take another look.
Thank you, Senator Benson. Anybody else? Senator Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the reason we test 3 through 8 is it's a federal accountability requirement. So I think we have a lot that we have to sort of wait on, because we don't know what's going to happen at the congressional level or in the Trump administration in regard to ESSA. So I know that the department is probably very much in limbo because they don't know, and neither do we. So this is not something we're going to act on immediately. We have to find out. It'll probably be one of these interim study groups again.
Thank you, Representative Erickson. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner McHenry, I'm looking on page 19 on the state funding, and I'm looking through the expenditures, and it says over the past 5 years, about 90% of the MDE's test-related expenditures have been directed to testing vendors. And I'm thinking back when we were talking about picking this topic, I had someone say, maybe paraphrasing President Eisenhower, to be aware, or maybe it was beware the testing industrial complex of that we have this integrated large system where we're working with vendors. And so my question to you is, if 90% of the dollars here on page 19 go to vendors, how do you ensure that the vendors are doing their job? Is there competitive bidding? Is there review? Or are you only locked into certain vendors to do this?
Mr. McHenry.
And Madam Chair, Representative Hansen, and that's a great question. The reason we utilize vendors first and foremost is that the cost of actually building the infrastructure to deliver these exams is enormous, is large, and having that done in the State Department of Education it costs too much. We do have a division of statewide assessments that it actually manages our RFP process. We have an open bidding process for all of our exams. We usually have 5-year contracts with our vendors, or options up to 5-year contracts with vendors. And our role in the department is really managing what the vendors are implementing, making sure that that is in line with state law, and that we're able to assess or we're able to implement assessments across the state. So part of our work in our assessment division is implementing these standards and working with our vendors and making sure that they're held accountable through our RFP process and through once we sign an agreement or a contract, that they're meeting the goals, they're meeting the specifications, and they're meeting the needs in the contract. I think another aspect in this report that was outlined is that's an area where the O.L.A. did give us credit for how we do manage our vendors to make sure that they are delivering on the legislative initiatives and statute that are included in our RFPs. And that's something that we continue to do to make sure that they're meeting the outcome goals that are laid out in statute.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McHenry and members. With that, our business is concluded, and we are adjourned.